In writing these stories, I got to talk to hundreds of people who were going through a difficult time in their lives and needed a small act of kindness to change their
A
lives.
little kindness goes a long way. Author Brad Aronson made being kind the subject of his book, HumanKind.
Actually, every single person agreed on one thing, that being seen mattered. And being seen wasn't talking about what they were going through. A lot of people did not want to talk about what they were going through, but it was knowing that someone was thinking of them. And that was just getting a note saying, I'm thinking of you. I hope all is well. Or I know things are tough. Just, I want you to know I'm in your corner. That made a huge difference. And that's something any of us can do.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. I am your host, Randy Sparks. And you know what? You matter. I love you. And you could be anywhere right now, anywhere in the world doing anything. And you are choosing to be here right now. And we hope that we can give you something uplifting. Today, we've got an amazing guest, father, husband, friend, entrepreneur, coach, teacher, and best-selling author of this book, HumanKind, Changing the World One Small Act at a Time, which was really inspiring and kind of brought tears to my eyes as I read so many examples of kindness in the world. Mr. Brad Aronson, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm psyched to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. Anybody that I come across who is just perpetuating, putting kindness and good vibrations into the world, I just want to hear more and spread as much of that as we can. And so when I had a mutual friend on my podcast who also focuses on kindness and gratitude, he referred to you in our conversation, and he talked about your book, and I said, I've got to meet this guy. So that's really how I was introduced to you, and I kind of tracked you down and kind of pestered you a little bit until we could have this conversation. But I'll give people a little bit of background. If you don't know this book, it's easy to find on Amazon or anywhere. But the book is going to be part of our conversation, I imagine, as well as other things that Brad's involved with and doing. So Brad, I'm obviously focused on gratitude, and I believe, and something important about gratitude, I repeat this and I say it all the time on the show, that gratitude changes lives, but not only that, it saves lives. And I heard that same phrase multiple times in your book about kindness, that kindness doesn't change lives, it also saves lives. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, in writing this book, my book was about small acts of kindness that seemed trivial at the time, but had this ripple effect and wound up changing thousands and thousands of lives in some cases. And it was a kindness that someone did that would inspire someone else to change thousands of lives. I can give you an example if you want.
Please.
I mean, I think of Gabriel. So when Gabriel was 6 years old, his mom, Natasha, was putting him to bed. And she said, Gabriel, November 3rd is coming up. It's a really sad day, and I'm going to be sad. But I don't want you to think anything's wrong. There's nothing wrong. And the reason it was a sad day is because Gabriel had been diagnosed with a disease several years earlier. And even though he was cured now, he went through 2 years of treatment, he was cured. It was just a bad reminder for her. And Gabriel said, Mom, why does it have to be a day of darkness? Why does it have to be a sad day? Why can't we turn it into a happy day, a day of light, like Secret Santa Day? And the background about Secret Santa and their family is that when Gabriel was in treatment, over the holidays, someone left a pile of presents outside their front door. And the presents were for Gabriel and his sister. And there was a note that said, Merry Christmas, love Secret Santa. And Natasha told me, she said, I pinned that on the fridge. And it was surprising. Every single night, or almost every single night for the rest of the year, we talked about it, how we couldn't believe someone did that for us. And we couldn't believe we never found out who it was. So, of course, when the next holiday season rolled around, Gabriel and his family decided that they would become Secret Santas. And what Gabriel discovered was that being kind and giving these gifts was even better than receiving them. And they talked about that, and it became their annual tradition. And this was his suggestion. Mom, let's do the things we do on Secret Santa Day. Let's be nice to people, do kind acts, and turn it into a day of light. So Natasha told me she didn't think this was going to help, but it was her kids, so of course they were going to do it. She said, "Sure, Gabriel, we'll do it." And Gabriel said, "Mom, can we invite our family to do it with us?" And she said, "Sure." And she made this video. And Gabriel said, "I want to turn November 3rd from a day of darkness into a day of light. Please do something nice for someone else." And Natasha took the video, emailed it to a dozen family members, and said, "Please do something nice on this day." A family member emailed back and said, "Could you create a Facebook page so that if we do something, we could type it in?" She said, "Sure." Gabriel goes nuts, thinking that, "Oh, well, this is going to be huge. It's on Facebook." And she's trying to set his expectations. We only told 12 people. And they asked people, "You do a kind act, please give the recipient a card that explains you're doing it for Gabriel's Day of Kindness." It'll have the website address on it so people can, if they want, type in what they did. And it would have a note on the card also that said, "If you want to do a kind act for someone else to pay it forward, please give them a card." So the day comes, and Natasha and her family live in Boston. The first kind act comes from Wisconsin, then Florida, then all 50 states, and Armenia, France, Czech Republic, and 53 other countries. This had gone global. Yeah, because the 6-year-old said, "Why not?" And Gabriel's family participated as well. They did. I'll shorten the story here. They did all these nice things, and when they get home, Gabriel says, Mom, is it still a dark day?" And she says, "No, this was a great day." He's like, Mom, can we do it tomorrow?" She says, "No, we can't do it tomorrow." "Like, can we do it next year?" "Yes, we can." And that's how Gabriel's Day of Kindness became an annual global kindness movement. And when you talk to Natasha, she says that this kindness, doing kindness, not just receiving it, but doing it, changed this day for her. She looks forward to it now. It's a day of happiness. And she also shared that 7 other families reached out to her and told her they created their own days of kindness to turn their child's diagnosis day into a day of light. So in that case, the kindness that they had received over Christmas made them feel so good that Gabriel said, "Let's use that to help us out of this difficult day." And it had this incredible ripple effect.
Hey there, everyone. Did you know that beyond hosting the Sparks of Gratitude podcast, I am also an estate planning attorney, and I love gratitude, and my law firm is proud to sponsor this video. Since 2010, in my law practice, I have designed and delivered customized peace of mind with sophisticated estate planning made easy. So whether you need foundational estate planning, including revocable trusts, wills, powers of attorney, and healthcare directives, which is what most people need, or you might need advanced strategies such as irrevocable trust for asset protection or advanced estate tax planning, I am here to guide you every step of the way. Because at the end of the day, your peace of mind is my peace of mind. You can visit randallsparks.com and I can get started helping you plan for the future today. Now back to our podcast. Yeah, I love that story so much. I want to tell you something. I had someone on this podcast who'd, studied neuroscience and so on, and he often, something that I learned from him is I'm not obviously a neuroscientist, and I can't say all the right parts of the brain and the chemicals and all the things, but I just know how I feel when certain things happen, right? But he says, evolutionarily, our brains have evolved for certain things. There's fight or flight and things that happen in our brain to protect us. And he says sometimes that's true in the temporary situations for safety, fight, flight, freeze, these actions that happen in our brain. But he says there's something that goes beyond that, where our brains have evolved to save us through compassion. And he says in the long term, maybe in an immediate scenario, this fight, flight response to the function of our brain, that's helpful. But in the long term, what saves us in the long term is compassion and what happens and occurs in our brain during acts of compassion. And there's this center at Stanford, I can't remember the exact name of it, for altruistic studies and something else. Well, they had found that when somebody performs an act of kindness or compassion to another, that the recipient just has this incredible dose of chemicals that uplifts them and actually changes the brain and what that does to enhance the person. Okay. But not only that, the person performing that act of kindness or compassion feels the exact same thing. But it goes beyond that. And I just want to tell you, because as you told me that story, He says what they found is that somebody observing, a third party, non participant, observer of an act of kindness or compassion has the same feeling, right? And so, talk about a ripple effect that's kind of scientifically shown that what happens into our brain, this positive effect that happens. And then now, what can I take with that? It's now I have a more positive, hopeful, encouraging, willing energy that now I'm moving on to spread that ripple of kindness beyond. And so, even you just telling me that story, I'm just kind of elevating. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. I love that, and thinking about that ripple effect. Something you said made me just reminded me of something. I work with young people. I've done it for years. It's a passion of mine, and I've seen that when young people have been through a lot of trauma and they're going through a very stressful time, when they provide community service to other people, it is relief to them, and they feel better. And it makes sense, but at first when you think about it, you're like, "Oh, these people have been through trauma, they need help." Actually, when they help other people, they feel empowered, they feel great along the lines of what you were saying from that study, and it's almost therapy to go out there and help other people, which is wonderful. You're not only making the world a better place for other people, but also for yourself.
Yeah, that makes me think, Brad, about the genesis of this book for you is going through something difficult. I mean, in your case, one of the seeds of this book was that your wife was diagnosed with leukemia, and through that challenging time, you saw uh, a number of acts of kindness of others toward you and your family. And as you started to see those things and the change, you said, "Well, I'm going to go out and seek more of these stories and kind of collect those stories." Is that part of how this came to be? Um, and and I mean, I think a wonderful act of service that you've done is collected these stories because now that you can share those, I mean, like how broadly you can share these stories instead of one on one at the dinner table. There's so many stories in here, just like the one you shared about Gabriel, that can do that and just spread it further and beyond. And so I'd like to know what the process and the feeling was like, and for you as you were searching and gathering all these stories from people about the effect and benefit of kindness.
I loved it,
I would say I would
and
amazed.
what surprised so we're in a world where the media is so negative and you see all this animosity and you think, "Oh my goodness, our world is just an angry, difficult place." And we miss the amazing things that are happening right in front of me and right in front of us. I found that I would just ask people, "Was there ever a small act of kindness that changed your life or that you knew changed someone else's life?" And most people had an incredible story that I had never like, friends of mine that I've been friends with for decades had stories I never heard before. People I worked with for years, "Oh, yeah, this thing changed my whole life." And you realize there's so much good going on in the world that we just don't hear about. And to your point, writing these stories, I felt incredible. It was like therapy for me. It lifted me up, made me see that the world was great. Sorry about my telephone.
It's okay.
And
Just answer it and ask them about that. Ask them if they had an act of kindness. Let's get some more stories.
I also because I started writing about it and posting it online, people reached out to me with their stories. So I'd hear all these wonderful stories, and then on top of that, I looked for them. So I would go out and buy books, like read people's amazing stories about what they achieved, what they did, and then sometimes I'd follow up and say, "I love your story." And it was this little piece, these 3 paragraphs you wrote about this mentor who changed your life. Could you tell me more about that life-changing moment so that I could write something about it? Because that's what I'm looking for, and that's what's inspiring me. Because I want readers to see, it can feel paralyzing. You see everything that's going on, you see the news, you could say, "How can I possibly make a difference?" And I want people to see we all can make a difference, and we don't have to do something huge. We saw how someone offering advice changed a life. An introduction had this ripple effect, changing thousands of lives. And hopefully, these stories, when people read about them, they think, "Wow, I can change thousands of lives."
Ooh, I love that. So that seems daunting. You address this in the book multiple times about one small act at a time. right? It doesn't need to be this massive, daunting thing. Now, of course, there are some stories that they seem like the ripple grew into something so massive, but what it began at was something very small. I have uh, there's a couple of parallels I see. The very first chapter in your book is called Love Does, and I love that so much. First of all, one of my favorite books ever written is called Love Does by a guy named Bob Goff. It's an amazing book. You don't know that one?
I love that book.
Which is great. Bob is amazing. I actually had him on the podcast. I interviewed him yesterday. So Bob is so inspiring, and I love um, that you tell that story as well as is you just go and do it. Something that Bob says is you don't have to cross an ocean. You just have to cross the street, right? These small acts of kindness. And so, um, it, maybe what well, actually, every one of the chapters that you have here, you kind of have themed chapters that kind of inspire, these stories. But at the end of every chapter, you say, "Hey, and here's an idea of what you can do about it. Here's an idea." I love that is because I get paralysis of how can I help, right? And so, what are some things that you've learned or ways that people can step up and do something? Some of these small acts of kindness.
I mean, I think the most important thing I learned is to get out of our own heads. We often think like, I don't know the right thing to do. I don't think this is enough. It might be awkward. And we let that hold us back, and it shouldn't. In writing these stories, I got to talk to hundreds of people who were going through a difficult time in their lives and needed a small act of kindness to change their lives. And pretty much, actually, every single person agreed on one thing, that being seen mattered. And being seen wasn't talking about what they were going through. A lot of people did not want to talk about what they were going through, but it was knowing that someone was thinking of them. And that was just getting a note saying, I'm thinking of you. I hope all is well. Or I know things are tough. Just, I want you to know I'm in your corner. That made a huge difference. And that's something any of us can do. And I heard also that over time, so if something really bad happens, there's this natural outpouring of support at first, but it tapers off over time. And people told me I was still feeling the pain. And this one friend must have set a calendar reminder because I heard from them every 2 weeks. And it's easy. We could be that friend. We know someone going through a rough time, set a calendar reminder every week or every 2 weeks. Text them a joke. Text them, I'm thinking of you. Something that small will give people the power to keep on going. And I think we all want to be connected, and we want people to see us. And that's a way we could see people, but also we're giving them their space. We're not asking them to talk about anything. We're not forcing anything. We're just letting them know, hey, we're here for you.
Yeah, I love that small thing. I had a guy named Curtis Bennett on the show who's the executive director of an organization called One Kind Act a Day. And, we had a lot of conversation. He says, the world is starving for kindness. And what I hear in that, one interpretation of that from what you just said is people want to be seen. Sometimes that act of kindness is really just feeling seen or appreciated. Like I think we're starving to feel appreciated. And simply to know that somebody sees me is wonderful. You gave some advice after telling stories of kind of changing the words that we use to step into that instead of saying, "How can I help you?" to say, "Can I come over?" Or rather than "What can I do?" just saying, "Can I accompany you?" Or similar types of things. So you kind of change the invitation, which will invite because it's hard to accept. Maybe talk about that. What have you learned about the recipient? Sometimes it's hard for somebody to ask for help or to receive it. What have you learned about that?
I mean, so many people that I spoke with, and I'm one of those people, have a hard time accepting help, right? We're used to being helpers. We're used to being there. We don't know how to accept help. And when people come to us and they're like, tell me what I could do for you, it's a beautiful request. But I remember when people came to me like, tell me what I could do for you, I'd say, thank you. I'll get back to you. And I never did. I was so frazzled. I didn't know what I needed. I felt a little bit guilty. But when someone said, hey, I'm going out to a soccer game. I think your son would love to come with us. Can we bring him? Or I'm going to Trader Joe's today. What can I pick up for you while I'm there? they make it seem so easy. I'm already going. What can I get while I'm going there? It's not, do you need groceries? And they're not forcing it because I could say, no, I don't need anything. But just kind of showing up and doing it. Hey, I'm here to mow your lawn. Open the gate, right? Whatever we think, offering it as, here's something I'd like to do for you. Tell me if you want me to do it now, or you could ask for it anytime. But really being there and stepping up so that we can. And I've seen wonderful ways that people offer help. I was once in the hospital, and there was a woman who was having trouble walking, and she didn't want any help. Someone was like, "Hey, can I help you?" "No." And then this nurse walked over and said, "Hey, it's great to see you again. Can I walk with you?" And the woman's like, "Of course you can." And the nurse, of course, like, put her arm around the woman and was supporting her, but she just offered to walk with her and let the woman not have to accept help, but be able to get it.
Yeah, that's incredible to see somebody. Um, you gave an example in the book of somebody taking a quiz, and the last question in the quiz was kind of unique. Yeah, can you tell that story?
Yeah, so it's a woman who, she was in nursing school, and it was their big nursing test, one of the big tests in her class, and the last question was, "Write down the name of the woman who cleans this building." And she was looking at it thinking, "This must be a joke. I mean, how would we know?" And someone asked the teacher, "Is this really a question?" And he said, "Of course it is. You're gonna be healthcare professionals. Everyone matters, and the least you can do is learn their names." And the woman went on to say, "That's a lesson I got decades ago. I still remember it. And by the way, the woman who cleaned our building, she was named Dorothy."
She learned the name for sure. I love that. What a powerful lesson. I mean, what an interesting thought that the professor in that instance thought to ask that question. Not to I'm sure it wasn't to kind of, you know, point out that people didn't know, but to teach, and
Right.
give an
And
opportunity.
in such a memorable way that someone remembers it. It's one thing to say you should learn people's names. It's another to have that kind of example that you probably never forget.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have an example kind of from coming from another angle that happened to me that taught me something similar. So my day job, I'm a lawyer, and I'm in a professional service industry and usually dress nice and work with clients and kind of a lawyer life. But that years ago, my partner and I were moving into a new office, and I'm like, well, why are we going to hire someone to fix all this stuff? I'm going to get in there, and I'm in there after work, you know, hammering out tile and fixing all these things. I'm like, I know how to do all this stuff, so I'm kind of fixing up our new space before we move in. Yeah, I don't know, this is 10 years ago or more, but I remember sitting like in the doorway of this building one evening and I'm hammering out some tile and I'm dressed all dirty and normally I'm in the day I look like a lawyer. Well, somebody walked in who I actually knew, and he literally stepped over me in the doorway to walk through the space and just look around with someone else and didn't even look at me or address me. And I was dressed all dingy and dirty and had like dust all over my face. And then when he walked out, I stood up and I said, "Well, hello," and his name. And he's like, "Oh, Randy. Yeah, it's great to see you. I didn't know that was you." And I just had this thought. I'm like, "Huh, I was invisible to him." But had I had my tie on or, I was dressed nice, I mean, he would have seen me. And I thought, how often do I not see someone?
That is such an incredible lesson. I know I live in Philadelphia. We have, unfortunately, a large population of people who are homeless. And in talking to homeless people that I know, they say the worst part for many of them is people avoid them. They just look away as though they're not even there. They'll walk by, they won't say hello, they'll look away. They're so afraid someone might ask for something. They said, well, just be nice. It's just nice when someone looks at us like, hey, good morning. They recognize that I'm a person and I'm here. And that's something we could all do.
Yeah, that's great. Just a smile and an acknowledgement and this is the one kind act, changing the world one kind act at a time. Maybe that is as small as looking at somebody and smiling,
Right.
right? Yeah. Okay. So I want to shift. You talk about. I think kindness and gratitude are so interconnected. No, I think they are just this kind of equal parts of the same yin yang thing, or just, just interwoven together so much. Um, a guy named Chester Elton, he's the gratitude guy. He's amazing. And he said to me once that kindness takes gratitude and makes it actionable. And I just like to hear your thoughts of the interplay between kindness and gratitude.
I agree completely with what Chester said. So when I think about how I got started in being super enthusiastic and engaged in volunteerism, it was when I was in junior high and my mom told my brother and I, "You guys are so lucky and you don't realize it. You need to start volunteering." So I started volunteering at this program for kids in our town who were going through extremely difficult family challenges. So a parent had died or something else that was really difficult was going on. I'm in junior high. These kids are young elementary school kids. And it was the first time I was thinking, holy cow, these kids are just unlucky. They did nothing to deserve what they're going through. They're beautiful, amazing people, and they got unlucky. And I am so lucky, and I should pay that forward. I felt so grateful for what I had that it made me kinder to everyone else. And I think it inspired me to keep that's what got me started, that's what got me motivated, and still today, I feel I'm lucky that I've had so many opportunities, and I'd like to be able to give some other people opportunities. So I do think they go hand in hand because when we appreciate what we have, it's natural to wanna share it and help other people.
Yeah, I believe that gratitude begets kindness and vice versa. What I could see the through line is all of these stories of kindness and what they spread to in the book. I mean, maybe I'd love to have you share some more of them just because the stories are so great. Um, it's it's simply asking somebody the question in your process of coming up with a book is like, what's, a small act of kindness that impacted your life? All of a sudden, I wanna know, what did you see in people when they started telling their stories? Because I imagine it's all of a sudden, it just kinda cracks open this possibility for them to expand in gratitude for something in their past. And now, I just imagine that's how it is for me when I pause and I'm, you know, writing a gratitude journal or thinking of those acts of kindness in my life, which I have been a bunch since I read your book. And I've picked out a bunch of them. Maybe I'll share some with you. But now all of a sudden, I just feel like my heart is just expanding with just tremendous gratitude for these small things that they're not actually small. They're life changing.
When I asked people and they started sharing, it's as though they were reliving that kindness. The glow, they were so happy, because they're reliving it. As you talked about, when someone's kind to us, we feel wonderful, we feel seen, and when you share it, you're kinda reliving it, and you feel great. It's also why writing a letter of gratitude to someone is a great way to make ourselves feel better. Not only do we make someone's day by sending them a letter acknowledging what they did for us, but we're reliving that. So we have that warm glow. We have that great feeling. And I know someone who was feeling really down and she wrote a thank you letter to someone every single day and it completely changed her outlook.
Wow.
Probably another great form of therapy.
Yeah, that's incredible. I just got back a week or so ago from a couples retreat. My wife and I really like love the idea of what can we do to continually get closer to each other. I am so grateful for her. I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I saw an Instagram reel a while ago that she showed me, and it was a octogenarian couple. It's kind of dancing in a courtyard, and somebody, I think, from a window was filming them, from a building up above, and you could just see them dancing and all the joy. And and then somebody who had reposted this put a caption on it that said, "Imagine all the forgiveness that led to this moment." And I think, wow, like what act of kindness is forgiveness that can strengthen a relationship with people that my wife and I are so committed to each other that, man, we've disappointed and forgiven each other so many times, but that's enhanced our connection and relationship. Part of this couples retreat that we went on, one of the things that came up along the way was the coach that was talking about it. He actually coaches executives too. Um, he said sometimes his executive CEO clients, um, confide in him that they think their marriage is over and they need some help, and he's like, "Okay, well, how about we do this, just before we address that, why don't you just, for 25 days, just write something that you're about your spouse that you're grateful for?" And he said every single time they came back and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's not their problem, it's me."
Wow! That is great
Yeah,
advice.
and so I'm like, wow, like when we this is my experience and what I keep hearing from people on this in these conversations is when we're looking for those acts of kindness, when we're looking for the gratitude, that's what we're going to see. And that's what's going to grow inside us. So we're just changing ourselves, right? My wife didn't change because I noticed that the things I'm grateful for about her, I did, right?
We see what we look for.
Yeah.
So it's important to look for the kindnesses and to look for intention. Because when someone does something, we could be offended by it or we could give them the benefit of the doubt, right? We're interpreting things either way. Why not give someone the benefit of the doubt and assume the best and choose to look for the best? Because that's what we'll find.
Yeah, I love that. You gave an example of that. Maybe you can tell it about when you and your wife drive together.
So, yes, when we drive together and I'm driving, I get a steady stream of warnings. Do you see that person over there? Watch out for the car. Oh my goodness. And sometimes it frustrates me. And I want to tell my wife, I drive without you 99% of the time. And somehow it must be a miracle I don't get into accidents. And then I thought, well, she's trying to save our lives. And I appreciate that. So I can just say thank you as she's pointing out every potential hazard that she thinks I will certainly miss without her. And, I've had times where there was a time where I thought she was really angry at me. And I was really upset because I was thinking, why is she mad at me? I haven't done anything, blah, blah, blah. And then finally, I asked her, I said, so why are you mad at me? She goes, I'm not mad at you. Why do you think I'm mad at you? So, well, you haven't talked to me. She goes, oh, this really upsetting thing happened, and I've just been processing it and thinking about it. And I thought, of course, I'm not a psychic. I'm not a mind reader. I had read into what was happening instead of either giving her the benefit of the doubt or simply asking, what's going on? So I try really hard not to make assumptions. And if I'm going to interpret something, to just ask, like, what did you mean by that? And I find that usually I am I feel great after I ask because sometimes I think things are worse than they are when they're not even a problem at all.
Yeah, that's great. And I like to hear you laugh about it right now, which makes me think of the healing power of laughter. And what's your experience with that and just laughter and whimsy in life?
I mean, I try to create as much fun as I can, and I think you can use fun to turn something that is not good into something that's good. Can I share a story about that? Uh, so first I'll say Gabriel's story is an example of that, where you know, let's make this fun. I have a couple other anecdotes that I love from Ronald McDonald Camp. This is a camp for kids with cancer and their siblings. It's a week-long overnight camp. I was a counselor here. So there were two fun things that happened many fun things that happened my first year, but two along the lines of what you asked about. So what I learned, I was a cabin counselor, so I had a bunk of little kids, and the kids who had cancer needed to get medicine at different times during the day. So at night, I get all the kids who need medicine together. That first night, we're going up to the wellness center, and I learned that most of them hate taking their medicine. And I could tell them, "This is gonna make you better, hopefully soon. It'll fight the cancer." They don't care. It makes their hair fall out. It makes them feel barfy. They just don't wanna go. And they have to go, so I take them up there. That first night, the wellness center is pitch black, except for this giant disco ball, and the disco ball's, like, flashing, the music is crazy loud, and the doctors and staff are there, and they're like, "You can't have your medicine, kids. You can't have your medicine unless you dance for it." And my kids start dancing, and they're sweating, and it's so much fun, and the rest of that week of camp, they couldn't wait to take their medicine at night. So I probably would have thought, well, unfortunately, taking medicine just isn't fun. But thankfully, the medical staff said, why can't we create some fun? And it was beautiful. And another example, also from my first year, because it's an overnight camp, the counselors, we would get up there a day early, get the bunk set up, get some training, and I pull in. I don't know anyone my first year. I pull in, and my co-counselor, Jim, is unpacking his car, and he brought a leaf blower. And I'm thinking, "Oh, man, he must really be into being clean, like, he's gonna leaf blow our bunk or something." I did look him up online, and his LinkedIn picture, he's wearing a suit, so I'm thinking, "Alright, he's, definitely a clean guy." Like, "Jim, what's up with the leaf blower?" He says, "Oh, I wake the kids up with it. They love it." And I'm thinking, alright. I mean, my son's the same age as these kids, and he would hate it if I woke him up with a leaf blower. And we have this tradition at camp where, you you go up to the pool early in the morning, first thing, and jump in. But the kids don't know about this when they first get there. So the kids arrive at camp, we bring them back to the bunk, and you go through the bunk rules. So you never leave your cabin, you participate in activities, you don't exclude people, you don't touch other people's stuff. And as we're going through the rules, Jim picks up his leaf blower and he goes, "Guys, if you don't wake up in the morning, I'm gonna leaf blow you." And the kids are looking at me, kind of asking, "Is this for real?" And I shrug my shoulders. I have no idea. I don't know, Jim. So we come back to this tradition. You have to get up and go jump in the pool. Some kids love it. It's an adventurous. First thing in the morning, we're jumping in. Other kids hate it because it's kind of cold. The water's cold in the morning, and they'd complain. By midway through the week, not a single kid would get out of bed. And it wasn't because they didn't want to go up to the pool. They wanted to be leaf blown. It was so fun. I'm having a hurricane in my bed. And then when we went up there, they were happy. They were laughing. They jumped in the pool because Jim wouldn't accept that some kids just aren't going to like it. He figured out how to make it fun. And by the way, when I got home and told my wife and our son, "Hey, we did this leaf blower thing," Jack said, "All right, I want you to wake me up with a leaf blower." And for the next few weeks, I woke him up every morning with a leaf blower. And it's because Jim said, "Why shouldn't it be fun?" And years after that, when I was a counselor with other people, I would bring my leaf blower because that's how I was going to wake kids up.
That's so fun to just turn life into whimsy and joy and bring people along. I really do think it heals and just brings joy.
It does, and I think it's up to us. So I brought that back from camp, and when we were doing stuff at home that was not fun, I would say, "All right, how can I channel Ronald McDonald Camp and make this fun?" Sometimes it didn't work, but sometimes we had fabulous successes. It was about making sure I thought through it and didn't just accept that because something hasn't been fun, I can't change it.
Mm. Yeah, I love it. Thank you for those stories. Those are awesome. So
You're welcome.
something else I am thinking about is hope. Kindness and hope. And a lot of times, and many of the stories that you share are often with somebody going through something difficult. And so what's your experience or some stories in here about finding hope through kindness?
I think it goes back to being seen. People going through a difficult time, they feel so alone. Like they're asking, "Why me? Why am I going through this?" And I'm sitting here and, how am I going to get through it? And then someone sees them and does something kind and you feel good and you're like, "All right, I can get through this. There are people supporting me. It's going to be better." Right? It might not be okay, but it can be better. And I think you need that hope, or else, like, hope is what powers us to keep going and to dream and to want to see things better. And then it kind of turns. So a lot of these stories, the person going through the rough time when their life changed because someone helped them. So like Karen Shirk, who, was a 26-year-old graduate student in social work. She's hard charging, she's changing lives. And then suddenly she collapses from this medical condition, myasthenia gravis, and can't move and can't do anything anymore. And she thought about taking her own life. And then there was a woman who saved her and gave her hope. And when she got better, she said, "I'm going to go help people like me," and created this entire nonprofit that's helped thousands of families. And there were so many stories like that, where because someone received kindness and received hope, it changed their life. And then they made it their mission to do the same for thousands of other people.
Yeah, I think that story is told in multiple instances in your book, that hope is created through this small act of kindness. I just really love the idea of hope and what hope really means. And you're involved with teaching, entrepreneurship to youth with HopeWorks, right? And I
Correct.
just love the name of HopeWorks. But yeah, talk to me about your experience there and how you just clearly, since maybe it was involuntary volunteering when you were a boy and your mom made you do it, but it's changed your life, and you serve and you work with people, and especially youth. Talk to me about your work at HopeWorks.
So I love HopeWorks. It's an amazing organization. And basically, young people come to us and their annual income is $300 a year and they're looking to make a change. And we give them training. We teach them to code. We teach them to use graphic design software. Then they get a job in one of our businesses. We run 3 businesses. And in that job, they're learning how to hold a job, how to run a team meeting, how to do all sorts of things that they will need. And then after they're successful in our business, we place them with one of our employment partners in a full-time, average salary $45,000 a year job with benefits, with paid time off, healthcare, and opportunity for promotion. And we partner with organizations that have positions that are hard for them to fill. So we're providing a service to them. They're not doing us a favor. They're getting great employees. So Cooper Hospital can't find enough medical coders. They can't find enough EMTs. Our young people, after they go through our job training, after they hold a job with us, we train them for those job at Cooper's, and then they go there, make great wages, and are on a track to be promoted. And we do it with Akamai. We do it with New Jersey American Water and so many other companies. And a lot of these young people, when they're in our program, we learn how entrepreneurial they are. They've had a lot of ups and downs, and they might have a side hustle or they want to have a side hustle. So, what I do is I help them think about entrepreneurship, and it's very hands on. So, I run this entrepreneurship program where everyone starts a business. So, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to read a lot of books about it. We're going to do it. So, what's the business? And what can you do this week to push it forward? And through doing that, many of our students have successful businesses. So we have entrepreneurs who are running their business full time, who are employing future generations of our young people because they've started their business, they're successful, they need employees, and they come back and hire them. And then we have a lot of entrepreneurs who now, when they're applying for these jobs, have a unique story to tell. I started something. I made revenue. I created this product. Here's what I did that helps them stand out and they could bring those skills to their jobs. And often these side hustles revolve around their passions. It could be art, it could be music, and it also gives them a way to tap into that hobby and kind of continue on with it as a side hustle, as a passion, make some money off of it. And I love it. I'm inspired. I learn about so many businesses I knew nothing about because every one of our entrepreneurs has they have different ideas of things they want to start, and watching them succeed teaches me so much and it inspires me. It keeps me honest because I see them working. I say, all right, I need to be entrepreneurial about my book and make sure that I'm doing good marketing and make sure I'm being smart about it.
Yeah, and so what are you learning about belief in self from some of these young entrepreneurs?
When we first started, before we got on the podcast, you talked about how sometimes you feel like you have imposter syndrome. Like, why is someone asking me for advice? Like, I'm not the right person when you actually are the right person. But you have this imposter syndrome. So many of our entrepreneurs feel that way. So, I'm not the right person. I don't belong here. And often they just need someone telling them, yes, you are the right person. You do belong here. Now let's do it. Let's take that first step. And then as they're taking those steps, they say, yeah, I do belong here. I am doing it. I'm making money. I'm learning. I'm having fun. And that's when they get out of that imposter syndrome and they have that belief in themselves and they see, I can do it.
Yeah, I love that you're giving people that opportunity. Um, so, Brad, I've got 3 kids, an 18-year-old, an almost 16-year-old, and a 10-year-old, and love them to death. And they teach me so much. So, because you're so involved with kids, and interacting with parents and people and learning about kindness, maybe using me as the subject, what are some tips that you could give to me to teach kindness to my kids? or what tips would you give to my kids?
I'm going to give you some tips. I think talking about it doesn't have a huge impact. Everyone is talking to our kids, their teachers, their grandparents, their relatives, and they watch what we do. No matter what we say, they watch everything we do. So performing acts of kindness and bringing them along to see is a great way for them to experience it. And there's so many ways you can do it. The holidays are coming up. One Simple Wish is an amazing nonprofit. It was started by this woman, Diane. She was a foster parent and saw that a lot of the other foster families couldn't afford to get the athletic equipment that their foster kids needed to play a school sport, or couldn't get music lessons, or couldn't have clothes that weren't old and dirty to wear to school. So she set up this website, One Simple Wish, where social workers type in what their clients, the foster kids, need, and they type in Christmas wishes as well. Something I did with Jack when he was young is I just said, "Hey, we're gonna go get a gift for a kid who might not otherwise get one. Let's go on the website." And the first thing he does is like, "All right, I want to find other kids who are boys who live in Pennsylvania. Oh my goodness, like this kid doesn't have a baseball mitt. I love baseball and I play baseball. He needs a baseball mitt. And wait, this kid can't get braces because there's not enough money. Like, Dad, we got to do something about it." And through that engagement, he could see it. And then, we deliver food sometimes. And it started off, it wasn't a choice like, "Hey, we're delivering food today. It's just what we do." And he could see, "Oh my God, Dad, like these people really didn't have a lot. And they're trying to give me a gift when we're bringing them food. Why are they doing that?" And we talked about how they're thankful and how they really appreciate it. And then the next time he drew a little picture for someone, and the guy said, "I'm hanging this on my mirror. This is the best art I ever got." But for him, and I think for most kids, seeing it and then being involved, that's how they realize that they love it. Kids naturally wanna do good. They don't have we feel awkward sometimes. I don't know them that well. They might not, I don't know how they're gonna take this. Kids generally open their arms and are there to help. So I think through example and then finding opportunities where we can do stuff with them. And there's so many opportunities, where like, the gift giving, giving out food. You can write cards to lonely seniors through programs like Letters Against Isolation. You can write cards to kids who are in the hospital for cards for hospitalized kids. There's lots of organizations and ways we can be helpful. And I'll give you one more example of this. My friend Tony, who's actually visiting this weekend, he was driving his daughter Maya, and they passed someone who was homeless. And she said, "Dad, what did that woman's sign say?" And he said, "Oh, it said that she wanted food because she's hungry." And Maya said, "Well, why didn't we stop and give her food?" And Tony realized, like, oh my gosh, there's so many homeless people in the area that I just started ignoring them. And my kid asked the right question. He immediately stopped his car, gave this woman his lunch, and told me, he said he felt like he got punched in the stomach. So, and was just so uncaring. And by the way, Tony at the time was a social worker. So he's doing good in the world all the time, but he just learned to tune it out because there was so much of it. And his daughter picked up on it immediately. Our kids are watching us. Even the teenagers who don't want to talk to us, who act like we are the most uncool people ever, they are watching what we're doing and they are absorbing from us. Or maybe your teens think you're really cool, but I know my son, I am hopeless and an embarrassment.
I love that. That's great tips, and I'm so grateful. I feel uplifted and inspired. I am going to do at least one act of kindness today because I believe you that kindness won't just change someone's life, but it can save it. And it only takes a moment. So thank you so much for all that you're doing and for inspiring so many people and for sharing this time with us. Brad, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for what you do with your podcast, helping people see gratitude, see kindness, see opportunities. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right, everybody. We love you and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining Sparks of Gratitude.